Hello everyone, today is 1st of July. Now it's 20 to 11 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment, and I will start with one of the main news for this moment worldwide, I will say, which is parliamentary elections in France, first tour of parliamentary elections. And we have some preliminary numbers after first tour. Marine Le Pen's party, National Unity, is leading with 33.4% of the votes. On the second place, according to Ministry of Interior Affairs of the France, is New People's Front. This is a union of the leftist political organizations. They have 27.98%, and on the third place is Macron's coalition with 20.76%. So at this point, Marine Le Pen's party clearly is leading in elections. Although, by the way, Macron already reacted on these results, and he is calling for to unite all the parties. He is calling basically to this National Front parties to unite against Marine Le Pen's party. Let's see if it will work out. But in any case, as I understand, this is the biggest victory for Marine Le Pen's party in recent history when it comes to internal politics of the France. And if they will continue, if they will be as successful in the second tour, then who knows, maybe in certain circumstances they will even be able to appoint new prime minister and new government. Although still there is many questions in that direction. Maybe Macron's coalition will unite with this leftist bloc, New People's Front, and they will still have a majority in the parliament. Probably that's exactly what is going to happen. But in any case, significant success on part of Marine Le Pen, which is and his party and her party, which is called for whatever reason ultra right. I don't know why. Maybe members of our community from France will share their opinion why this party of Le Pen called ultra right. Are they Nazis or some extremists, or they are just conservatives or traditionalists, and this name calling is just part of this neoliberal agenda, and they try to smear everybody that they don't like. Probably that's exactly the case with this Marine Le Pen's party. Although, if you are, many people are wondering, even if this party will achieve a final victory and be able to form cabinet of ministers in France, will French foreign policy, for example, will change significantly? There will be some changes in internal politics, but will French foreign policy will change, and approach of the France towards, for example, Ukrainian crisis and relationships with Russia? And me personally, I have no answer on this question, because first of all, because recently secretary of the Marine Le Pen's party, I cannot remember his name, said that he is not against sending weapons and munition to Kiev regime. And then what is the difference between him and Macron? What is the difference between the current government of France and possible future government of France that will be formed by this Le Pen's party? It will make no difference if they are going to continue this supply and support of the Kiev regime. Then how they are any different from Macron? But anyways, let's wait and see. let's wait and see. Okay, that's been said. There also interesting news, by the way, from RIA Novosti, that during the nighttime, early hours of today, Russian air defense systems shut down some 36 drones of the Kyiv regime over their several Russian regions. To be more precise, 18 drones were shut down over the Bryansk region, 9 drones over Kursk region, and also 9 drones over the Belgorod region. No reports for this moment about casualties on the ground or more or less significant damage as a result of this yet another attempt of Kyiv regime to strike deep inside the Russian territory. Also, RIA Novosti's report that according to Russian Defense Ministry, Russian forces established full control over the settlements of Spornaye and Novoalexandrovka in a DPR. Well, these settlements are under Russian control for quite a while, but the Russian Defense Ministry only now confirms this information. This is Novoalexandrovka in direction of in Avdiivka sector, and not just this settlement is under Russian control, but right now Russian troops are advancing towards Vozdvizhenka. I reported about it a few times previously, and once this Vozdvizhenka settlement will be under full Russian control, then Russian troops will have direct fire control over this main supply and support line that goes from Akrovsk to northern sectors of the front line, and this is a main supply and support line for Kyiv regime troops in this northern sector. So of course, once Russian troops will establish direct fire control over this strategical line, obviously it will make life for the Kyiv regime troops ever more difficult. And when it comes to Spornaye settlement, this is the Spornaye on Seversk direction, southeastern part of Seversk. This settlement is also under Russian control for quite a while now, but Defense Ministry just now confirmed this information. Also, by the way, of course, you know, and I also reported about it, that Razdolovka is under full Russian control when it comes to Seversk direction. Russian troops are now preparing ground for offensive operations towards Fyodorovka Pereyezdne, outskirts of the Seversk, one may argue. And yes, when it comes to situation on line of contact, I will say it's still operational pause. No crucial changes, no large-scale military operations are taking place, and the attention of the public is still towards northern sectors of the Kharkov region, where Russian troops are creating this buffer zone. And I will say this operation is already a huge success. Not that many people paying attention to it, but it's a clearly success story, not just because so many settlements were already liberated in this buffer zone, but because Kyiv regime was forced to direct deploy towards Liptsi and Volchansk, for example, strategical reserves that they had, significant part of it, and also because of the manpower the Kyiv regime is experiencing, they redeployed troops towards northern parts of Kharkov region from other sectors of the front. And as a result, in last 3-4 weeks, by the way, Russian troops on other sectors of the front line established control over dozens of settlements that was underreported. There was not that much attention towards these successful operations on part of Russian troops on other sectors of the front line. From Vremevsky salient or even Orekhov bridgehead, by the way, in Zaporozhye, where Russian troops several weeks ago established control over the Rabotina. From this area to Vremevsky salient, for example, Staromayorska is under Russian control, and Urozhaina will become under Russian control in fairly short time. In South Donetsk sector, of course, Novomikhailovka and Paraskovievka are under Russian control, and Konstantinovka is on sites now, and Russian troops advancing in this area also. When it comes to Krasnogorovka, by the way, southern flank of Donetsk sector, Krasnogorovka is about to become under full Russian control. All the strategical places, areas of the settlement is under Russian control already. Excuse me. There was a huge progress of Russian troops in Avdiivka direction, and now Russian troops are approaching Karlovka settlement, As I said, Yasna Brodovka, by the way, was liberated by Russian troops a few days ago, and even though Russian Defense Ministry not yet confirmed this information, I guess in next few days we will receive this confirmation also that Yasna Brodovka is under Russian control. As I said, Russian troops are advancing towards Vozdvizhenka. Sokol settlement is finally under Russian control, and Defense Ministry confirmed this information. Significant advances, by the way. On Toretsk direction, Russian troops are advancing. In Chisov Yar, by the way, Russian troops quite successfully managed to create this trap, quite effective trap in Canal district, and at this point, I guess up to brigade of Kyiv regime forces were neutralized in that Canal district if you combine losses that Kyiv regime had. So Russian troops were very successful, and this was somewhat underreported because all the attention was directed towards this northern flank of Kharkov region and Liptsy and Volchansk settlements. And by the way, when it comes to Volchansk, as I reported yesterday, many sources in Russian segment of internet are basically reiterating that it's only a matter of days. It's only a matter of days, and Kyiv regime units will have no option but to withdraw from northern parts of Volchansk, especially now when Russian troops are entering this so-called citadel block with the high-rise apartment buildings. And once this area is under full Russian control, then well, if you take a look, if we zoom in, these other parts that's still theoretically under control of Kyiv regime, it's a low-rise buildings that would not help really Kyiv regime to hold on to their positions. So maybe before end of this week, battle for northern Volchansk will end with Russian success, obviously. So that's been said, by the way, let's talk about some other news also. And well, this is interesting. This is interesting. According to Russian underground, coordinator of the Russian underground in Nikolaev region, Sergei Lebedev, Russian missile forces conducted precise long-range strike on point of concentration of Ukrainian neo-Nazi Kraken battalion on outskirts of Kharkov, and the strike was precise, effective, and this neo-Nazi formation had a significant number of casualties, which is success, of course. Russian troops, whenever have opportunity to neutralize these neo-Nazi formations, of course, they are conducting strikes against them and destroying those formations, because we all know that from 2014 up to 2022, this Azov, Kraken, and many other neo-Nazi formations were terrorizing civilians in Donbass on daily basis, and they were terrorizing Russian speakers just about everywhere in Ukraine. They committed numerous crimes, and they can be no forgiveness for these criminals. And Russian troops will hunt down all of them whenever it is an opportunity or opening for that. And well, in this particular case, Kraken battalion had a significant number of casualties as a result of the Russian strike. RIA Novosti's report about very interesting operations that Russian troops conducted in Toretsk direction. So let me show you area, by the way. This is second time when something like that has happened, if I'm not mistaken, when Russian troops used underground infrastructure to conduct some operations. So this is Toretsk, by the way, here. Toretsk direction. Russian troops are quite active in this area lately. Recently, we had reports that Shumi settlement, this one, was liberated by Russian troops in this direction. And well, this is Kirov, by the way, on outskirts of Toretsk. And the Russian troops find out that there was a underground pipeline. And they use this underground pipeline to move forward for 3 kilometers, by the way. And they and Russian stormtroopers moved through this pipeline for 3 kilometers. They organized supply and support line. Then they emerge from the ground behind the main stronghold that Kiev regime had on outskirts of Kirova, which is on itself lays right next to Toretsk, by the way. I mean, they are literally next to each other. This is Toretsk, this is Kirova here. So Russian troops emerged behind, in the rear of this stronghold of the Kiev regime on outskirts of Kiev, conducted a surprise offensive on these outskirts, and basically significant number of Kiev regime troops were forced to surrender, and whoever decided to continue fight, they were neutralized. So that stronghold is under full Russian control, and right now, if we take a look at these white dots, this is the approximate line of contact, then you clearly can see that this is a stronghold, and this area is under Russian control now. I believe this is second time this underground infrastructure was used. First time we hear story like that when Avdiivka operation was in full force, before Avdiivka was liberated. And now this story, one day maybe some movies will be made about these operations of the Russian stormtroopers. So yes, Russian troops are achieving significant progress in direction of Toretsk. Battles are taking place inside the Kirova right now, and Druzhba settlements, and I guess before end of this summer, all these settlements, Druzhba, Toretsk, Kirova, and possibly New York, by the way, which is on the southern side of Toretsk, will become, and surrounding smaller settlements will become under full Russian control. Many of you probably see strike of Russian FAB 3000 on a point of concentration of Kiev regime forces in New York. That happened like a day or two ago. And also, by the way, when it comes to FAB strikes, it was today. Yes, that's another FAB 3000 strike, by the way. Impact of Russian FAB 3000 glide bomb on the location of the 13th Special Purpose Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine. This is Azov neo-Nazis, by the way, in Slobozhanskaya. This is Kharkov direction. So let's look at this video here. That's point of concentration of Ukrainian neo-Nazis, and then FAB 3000 right on top of that building, and well, as you can see, probably very few of those neo-Nazis managed to survive that strike. So yes, FAB 3000s are being used quite often nowadays, which is interesting. And if you notice, guidance is improved also. First instances of the deployment of FAB 3000s were somewhat questionable, because there was according to videos, there was a slight miss, not exactly the hit on targets. But nowadays, I mean, as you can see, these strikes are quite precise. But anyways, by the way, this is FAB 3000. Even if you miss for 10-15 meters, I mean, it not makes any difference. Even 20 meters, it will obliterate everything in 200-meter radius. Anyways, so, and also, by the way, it's not just kinetical destruction, but also, as a result of this huge explosion, pressure, by the way, changes in pressure also are devastating force on its own, and that change in pressure may do also deadly damage to the enemy forces. Anyways, let's continue now, and well, news from Artiv that Zelensky, this illegit so-called president of Ukraine, is outlining a model for talks with Russia. What a surprise, It was Zelensky, isn't it, that were refusing to not just to talk to Russia, but he initiated on legislative terms in Ukraine to ban any negotiations with Russia. And by Ukrainian law now, nobody from Kiev regime can negotiate with Russia. That's their law. And until they will change this law that they created themselves, they have no right to negotiate. But Zelensky is anyways, I mean, with that law or without it, he is a illegitimate leader of the Kiev regime. So there is no way Moscow can negotiate with this garbage anything, really. But let's go through this news. Kiev is not ruling out peace talks with Moscow, but they can only be held through intermediaries. Ukrainian so-called leader Vladimir Zelensky told the Philadelphia Inquirer on Sunday. He suggested that the format used to broker the 2022 Black Sea grain deal could provide a foundation for negotiations. Well, Ukraine has previously refused to accept Russia's terms as their basis for the talks and has accused Moscow of being incapable of good faith negotiations. In late 2022, Zelensky issued a decree proclaiming the impossibility of talks with Moscow while Russian President Vladimir Putin remains in power. Moscow, meanwhile, has maintained that it is ready to restart negotiations, but only if Kiev renounces claims to former territories that have become a part of Russia. In autumn 2022, 4 former Ukrainian territories, the 2 breakaway Donbas republics and the regions of Kherson and Zaporozhye formally joined Russia following series of referendums. Ukraine has never recognized the results of their results and continues to lay claim to these regions, as well as Crimea, which joined Russia following the similar referendums in 2014. So yes, Russian side is quite clear. Russian president just recently, like 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, outlined Russian way, Russian approach to possible end of hostilities in Ukraine. Kiev regime has to recognize Russian jurisdiction over their new Russian regions, withdraw troops from Zaporozhye, Kherson, DPR and LPR regions, and then talks may take place, some serious talks between their sides. So if Zelensky wants to end this hostility, he knows a proposal from Russia. Let's talk. But if he don't really wants to end this conflict, and if he is waiting for his Western masters, what they will say, and when they will approve peace talks to be held, then that's a whole different story. But first of all, what Zelensky has to do is he has to rebook whatever decrees he made, whatever laws were passed in Ukraine's parliament, to give legit representatives of the Kiev regime legit right to negotiate. But it's an interesting change, by the way, in behavior of Zelensky. Recently, he was talking about, during the English language interview, he was talking in English when he said that Kiev regime is suffering huge losses on line of contact. They cannot continue this forever. That was interesting. He was clearly talking to Western public and Western ruling class by saying so. And now he is talking about some peace talks. They know, by the way, they are on the verge of collapse. Kiev regime forces are on the verge of collapse. Just give it a couple of months, and probably before end of this summer, maybe early autumn, we will see beginning of their end, a real beginning of their end of the Kiev regime forces as a more or less capable entity. And Kiev regime knows this. And maybe that's why there is some certain changes in behavior and statements of at least some of the representatives of the Kiev regime. Who knows? Anyways, let's continue. TASS News Agency's report that President of Serbia, Alexander Vučić, commented on the confrontation between Collective West and Russia, and he said directly that there are some forces in the West that want to divide Russia, want to control Russian territory and to use resources of the Russia. They don't really care about anything else. All they want is to control Russia and to extract Russian riches. That's it. And he's correct, by the way. I mean, in this particular case, I don't think anybody can argue with Vucic. Western ruling class, they want Russian territory and they want Russian riches. That's it. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about Ukraine or Ukrainians. They don't care about Russians. They don't care about their own fellow citizens in the West. All they care about is power and money. That's it. RIA Novosti's report that, well, according to CNN was the first media who reported about it, if I'm not mistaken. So US bases all around Europe are on high alert due to some terrorist threats. Interesting. No details are provided, no specific details provided, but who knows, maybe this terrorist threat was used to just increase readiness of the troops, US troops in Europe. Maybe that's what is happening. Because after all, it's US secret services and Western secret services in general that are in control of vast majority of terrorist organizations. They created those terrorist organizations and they are in control of those. So if CIA is not planning to conduct attacks on US bases, and they can do it, by the way, CIA is a terrorist organization itself, biggest one and most powerful one, and they can easily conduct terrorist attacks on US soil, on US military bases or overseas, if they think that will give them opportunity to achieve some strategical goals that they might have. No doubts about that. They can conduct these false flag operations, and they did it many times before. But let's see how will the situation develop. Why this high alert on US bases in Europe? Meanwhile, we have this news that excuse me, US is delivering additional bunch of armored vehicles, transferring additional bunch of armored vehicles to its European military bases, and in this particular case we have report that some 14 M1 Abrams tanks were deployed on a US base in Powidza in western Poland. And on this base, by the way, already a significant number of Western military equipment. Overall, it can house some 85 Abrams tanks and 190 different type of armored vehicles, including M2 Bradleys. So US is sending more and more armored vehicles into Europe, probably to then transfer these weapons to Kiev regime, maybe, or to use these weapons when NATO forces will try to establish control over the Western Ukraine. And I mean, I said so many times before that in my personal opinion, in my reading of the big picture, after this conflict will end, Ukraine will be divided between West and Russia. Western Ukraine will be controlled by NATO, and the rest of the Ukraine by Russia. Although there is a slight chance that Kiev and surrounding areas may remain on the political map as a Ukraine under such a name, although just a slight chance of that. Why would Moscow agree on such development? Kiev is a Russian city and should be liberated, period. You know. But when it comes to Western Ukraine, Russia has no interest in Western Ukraine. Before Second World War, 70% of Western Ukraine was, approximately 70% was part of Poland. So let the Poland take this territory back and deal with the Ukrainian neo-Nazis, because Western Ukraine is a birthplace of the Ukrainian nationalism, by the way. And the Ukrainian nationalists are strong in Western Ukraine. Also, by the way, Romania, some parts of Western Ukraine eventually will be claimed by Romania and Hungary, obviously. And entire Western Ukraine will be controlled by NATO, because all these countries are NATO member states. And the rest of the Ukraine will be controlled by Russia. And I guess all these military exercises that are taking place in Central and Eastern Europe, all this deployment of troops of the US, UK, some other countries towards Central and Eastern Europe, is a preparation of the NATO to conduct rapidly advance into Western Ukraine once order is given, once this operation on occupation of western parts of Ukraine is green-lighted. That's what is happening, really, in my opinion. Anyways, let's continue. Let's continue, and few more news. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that, well, in China there was exercises of test launch of the Tianlong-3 rocket, space rocket, which end up being failure. This rocket failed, and many of you probably see this. This video, by the way. It just went up and then crashed down. And there was a huge explosion. And this rocket, by the way, this Tianlong-3 is somewhat similar to SpaceX's reusable Falcon 9 rocket. This is just first stage of it. And well, as you can see, a rocket failed down. According to some reports that they see, there was error in and then huge explosion, by the way. Huge explosion. Not far away from some settlements. And it raises question. I mean, yesterday during the live stream on YouTube, I spoke about this, that, you know, how come that this missile launch site is in close proximity from a settlement? It's just too dangerous, man. And how come that this rocket, this first stage of the rocket, was not neutralized in air while it was failing down? I don't know. I guess there is different approaches to safety in China and in Russia, for example. Russia is using several cosmodromes now, isn't it? Several launch sites. One is in Kazakhstan, Baikonur. Another is in far east of Russia, Vostok cosmodrome, and also Russia is using another Plisetsk, isn't it? Plisetsk launcher place, and there are no settlements in tens of kilometers away from those launch sites, and that's done for safety reason. But China has different approach. Anyways, this was a test launch. We all remember that when Falcon 9 was in a testing stage, there were so many failures on Falcon 9 also, but now they are flying up and down on a regular basis without any incidents or accidents. So I guess Chinese companies, this is private company, private enterprise, as I understand, well, Chinese side will also catch up eventually. And I will end this video, by the way, on this news that Kanye West is in Moscow. Of course, everyone is familiar with this artist, one of the biggest names in hip-hop history, one of the biggest producers in hip-hop and R&B. And well, he's in Moscow. There was rumors that he's going to give a concert. He's going to perform in Russia, but In this particular case, what we know is that rapper has been spotted in the Russian capital, but reports of him giving a performance are false. The concert venue that was, earlier was claims that this venue will be used for performance. Refused, rebooted this information. They said there's no plans to conduct some concert. Maybe Kanye West is visiting Russia as a tourist. Who knows, man? Maybe he wants to move to Russia. Why not? Why not, man? That will be interesting. That will further increase interests of the people in the Western world, especially conservative, traditionalist people, to move to Russia to live. And I believe this is good. Russia needs more people, and we all know, by the way, that traditionalists in US or in Europe, by the way, they are hardworking, law-obeying people. They are just pissed off with their own government and with these neolibs and their crazy ideologies, and many of them are looking for some other places to migrate, take their families, because they want better future for their kids. And here in Russia, by the way, normality is welcome. Traditions are welcome. The family values are protected. Everything is okay here in Russia. And that's why I'm saying Russian government should do more to promote this idea that people can come to Russia. All you need to do is be decent human being, law-obeying human being, and learn Russian. Learn Russian, so that will make integration easier. And that's it, really. So who knows? I would not be surprised, really, if we will learn in upcoming few days that Kanye West is visiting Russia just to, see around. Maybe he wants to move to Russia. Who knows? Okay, that's been said. And by the way, of course, I know that he was accused of some crazy stuff in US. There was attempts to cancel him, and somewhat successful one, because many bigger companies that had contracts with him dropped him. But he managed to deal with these issues anyways. I mean, he is a great businessman also. And I don't believe he is a xenophobe or extremist of any sort. I don't believe in that. He may be, unsuccessful. Sometimes, one may say some stuff that may sound bad because it has to be explained. And maybe that's what happened with him. Sometimes I may say stuff that, I have to explain in details what I mean. Otherwise, who knows who will understand this my word. Okay, you know what I mean, isn't it? My English is so bad, by the way. I'm struggling with this constantly, But anyways, yes, I don't believe Kanye West is a xenophobe or some sort of or some extremist. He was targeted by neolibs and their mob, and maybe he wants to move somewhere else where normality is welcomed, when he can express at least his opinion and don't be intimidated for that. So who knows? Let's see. This is it for now. Relatively short update, by the way. Relatively short update. Recently, Candace Owens was on the show of Piers Morgan, and she is a friend of Kanye West, and she tried to explain what happened with Kanye. And their explanation sounds understandable, in my opinion. I don't believe Kanye is some sort of xenophobe or extremist, man. He may was unsuccessful in several sentences that he said. Maybe some more explanation was needed, more nuances were needed, so that people would understand to better what he meant. But you know, still, by the way, I think he's not a monster that neolibs in US are trying to create from him. I don't think so. And dear friends, if you notice, Chiburashka is back. Chiburashka is back. Several members of our community were asking, where is Chiburashka? Where is Chiburashka? So Chiburashka is back. And if you are not familiar, by the way, Chiburashka is a cartoon character, Soviet-era cartoon character, very much loved all around Soviet Union. So yes, that's Chiburashka there. And this is it. This is it. Relatively short update, at least not 1.5 hours. Hopefully you will find this update interesting, informative, useful, maybe somewhat entertaining. That will be great, of course. And if so, then please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. More likes and comments are only way we can try at least and influence algorithm to reach wider audience. And for very same reason, if you can, please share information about my channel with your friends in real life and on internet platforms that you are actively using. I believe there are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people worldwide that want to know a channel from Russia that provides news from Russia, from Russian media, and perspective, Russian perspective. I just need to reach these people somehow. And yes, if you find this channel interesting, useful, if you think this channel deserves to exist, then please consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal, Boosty, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.